for such a long time. We have veterans, Foxay, Laxing, Vertical. We have newbies, up and coming, Yoga and Kino, and they are going to have to somehow stop the Italians, Mkers, from making their day. Clubhouse will be the battleground for tonight. Let's jump into it.
Speaking about Clubhouse, let me just throw it in there for the viewers. Mkers beat TSM, another North American team, on this exact map, 7-4. And they were able to walk away with 3 attacking rounds, 4 defensive rounds. They were a very holistically strong team against TSM. Oxygen are going to have to show something fantastic, because if TSM are losing to Mkers on this map, I mean, that is a mountain to climb.
Certainly is. TSM have not had a great run in stage 1, but they've shown up when it mattered here for the most part at SI. Oxygen, it's quite the reverse. The guys on the desk said that these guys finally hit first place in NAL after always being the bridesmaid, never quite the bride, and at SI they just haven't been able to get anything to stick. They're going to ban the Ash against Mkers.
That is a Lolo target ban. They've seen what Lolo can do on it. Mind you, if you look back to last map, literally just happened moments ago, then Lolo absolutely went off on the Ash and Melusi, so they're getting rid of that. They won't get rid of the Melusi, however. They'll get rid of the mirror instead. Gemini is the mirror main for the side of Mkers. So essentially they have target banned in some way, shape or form. Last time Mkers were on this map, they also target banned TSM. They got rid of the Zofia, so it's not a surprise that these kind of a little bit off-meta, more targeted bans are coming out. And Mkers will take a little bit of time here to decide what their last ban will be. Is it going to be a target? Well, a little bit. They're going to get rid of the Valkyrie. They didn't do that last time because TSM banned it for them. They got rid of the Kaid instead. But this time the Kaid will be in play, so we'll see whether or not that changes things up as Mkers start on the defense.
Yeah, well, that Kaid might not be too impactful. We do have Thatcher and Maverick on the cards. The Hibana is the only blow that the hard breach utility has seen. But just to touch on that Ash ban as well, it's funny, Oxygen have done it a couple times. They banned it against MIBR already in the groups. They also banned it against Space Station during the NAL season. And there's a point where, like, I wonder, obviously, you want to take that away from Lolo, right? But also, there is some good utility on the Ash. And if you were a roster that was planning on running the Ash and Zephyr, well, now you've suddenly got to substitute something else in for that.
Absolutely. Speaking of substitutions, there's a nice little 6 pick onto the Clash. They won't be prepared for that one because, well, Yoga's going to really be the only one who can deal with it with those concussions. We've seen it a lot of Capitao. SSG was running it last match, and a lot of it from FaZe Clan as well. And that's something that not only can you use for an execute, but you can use to counter the Clash. They won't really have that in pocket here. And Mkers will start all the way downstairs in Armory. This is where they started against TSM as well. Akwi got a 2K on the mute. And so I'm just so excited for this match here, James. Honestly, I have to keep it together because this really is just history in the making.
Yeah, it's the first time that we've casted Oxygen. Now, it's been so long since I've really been intimately watching these guys play, and so I'm really excited to see how they do and what they can bring out, because they are coming from behind. They had such a good season, brought in Kino and Yoga, 2 up-and-coming players from CL. And Kino, he made a tweet on Monday, and he said, 3 months ago I was stuck playing ranked every day, and tomorrow I'll play the 6 Invitational, and I'm still processing everything. Wow. And I mean, that was before he had a great first day. Their opening game, they won 7-0 over Parabellum. Since then, Kino and Oxygen have struggled. Kino has been the rookie of the year by all accounts. He got an ace on Thermite the very first round he played in NAL, and that was actually on this map. And just, unfortunately, SI has not quite been everything he hoped.
Well, Oxygen have an opportunity to change that now. There we go. That's a confirmation that the 6 pick occurred, and Vertical will call that out to the rest of Oxygen. Because of the Hibana ban, which I consider to be one of the strongest operators for a hard breach when you're pushing downstairs being banned, they will have to work. Foxay is going to have to bring the Maverick. Kino's brought that Thermite. You spoke about how he got an ace, being one of the best support players and rookies for NAL coming into it. And Foxay will make very quick work. The blue hatch gets open, and now he's going to work on the Moto hatch. I heard a C4 rip, but maybe that's just a sort of a pocket thing there from Aqua. He's the only one who has a C4 in hand. And interestingly enough, I think Gemini was hoping that Kino would try something over towards the kitchen hatch that he might be able to impact trip, but nothing yet as this C4 is ready for the main stairs. Shots rain out. I think they're trying to bait it.
The great lineup, over it goes, but Yoga predicts it and backs on out. Believe he also managed to destroy that deployable shield in the hallway as Oxygen have made some good progress, but still a 5 versus 5, this full anchor setup. That shield's still intact. Mkers are sitting pretty safely on that bomb site.
Here we go. Kino's going to try. Gemini's not in a really good position to impact trick this one. I don't think anyone's able. He tries and fails. And as a result now, they will get almost... In fact, not almost. They've got every single hatch opened. Mkers, they are feeling worse for wear here. I think Blue, or rather Dirt, is the only place that's not being pushed currently. They make their way down Blue. Lolo says goodnight, but Foxay gets the trade. And when you're down to 25 seconds, this is where you've got to flourish if you want to be able to stop the incoming Oxygen.
Oxygen take a deep breath as they start to push on forward. Yoga from the bottom of main stairs does find the first kill for his team, and now looking forward, Oxygen have to make and execute work. Where is it going to come from? As Aqua's done some damage, Yoga bottom main stairs looking to cover as the plan starts to go down in Moto. Scatto taken down, all on Sasha. All of a sudden, as he has to retake, a 1v3 becomes a 1v2. He's got a lot of work ahead of him as Laxing and Yoga can cover safely. Patience from the newbie on Oxygen as he waits. Already has 1 kill to his name. Sasha checking every angle, but not the one that matters. Laxing, the veteran, takes him down, and that's the first round for Oxygen.
What I love there from Oxygen was they didn't rush their time. I actually thought they might be looking to make a statement here as they'd lost so many games throughout the group stages as a whole. I thought they might come into this a little bit restless. And because of that, they might make a few mistakes. They might not be as calculated as we usually see Oxygen. They're the first place team in NAL for a reason. They've come into this first round and shown they can eat up every single second of the clock and really use that to their advantage. They worked out in the end. I actually thought they might do a pop drop down kitchen hatch, but they decided to replace themselves, go over towards church, get a plant off there. The one place the smoke wasn't. Really good round there from Oxygen. And I think it's going to put Mkers on the back foot here to think, well, we couldn't deny any of the hatches. We couldn't deny the plant. We didn't get any of those effective smokes out. Our C4 for main stairs didn't work. And as a result, they'll move upstairs now to see if they have a better answer in CCTV.
It's funny, you mentioned Oxygen being really slow there, and that has definitely got to the point where it's a pattern for the NA teams at SI so far. We talked about how 2020 was a period of time where all of the different teams across the world started to develop individually because there was no inter-regional competition. There have been a lot of spokespeople, for example, Reaper, former coach, content creator now. He loves analyzing NA because they tend to have a bit more of a methodical, structured play style. And what's funny is coming into SI, that has actually suffered somewhat because of that time management. We're seeing these NA teams with their methodical attacks. They try and dot all their I's, cross all their T's, but they tend to run out of time, which is the most important T of them all. And, well, Mkers, they've already punished Oxygen, or tried to punish Oxygen once for that, but of course, as you said, slow and steady did get the win for OXG.
Foxay will deal with this mute jammer that will stop the wall, and Yoga will deal with Scutto, who's attempting to try and get an early pick there. Doesn't work out, and as Aqui tries to impact trick that thermite charge, he'll miss again. Mkers struggling with all of these impact tricks on both sides now. And they're just giving a little bit of freedom here for Oxygen, whether or not it's these impacts being wasted or bodies being thrown early on, James. Not good here for Mkers, who are seemingly on the back foot. Let's not forget, they haven't secured themselves that upper bracket spot yet, so they're really in a position here to propel themselves into that top 4 as a solidified top 4 player or team.
That's it. Mkers is safe from being eliminated today, but of course, you want to head into that upper bracket and have that second life. Foxay on the Kennel's balcony. Patience for him. He's just mainly trying to cut off players here as the rest of OXG. Okay, he's actually going to go deep, and what a great shot pre-firing the player on rafters, but he'll fall to the gas. as OXG have to recompose. Mkers have suddenly tried to bring this back a little bit, but Foxay didn't have the diffuser. Kino has that in hand. And really, all Foxay achieved was clearing off that Rafters player, but usually that takes a very long time and a lot of effort. Now OXG, with over a minute to go, they have that control, and they've set themselves up really well for this execute.
That was a viable trade there that Foxay did, because they were going to struggle, as you said, with the Rafters position no matter what they did. There was an earlier impact there which opened up that line of sight onto the window hop. And Kino's a little by himself here. Good C4 catches Kino, and Gemini, he's got the Kobe. And as a result, now they've evened the man count with just under 60 seconds left. Watch your back, because that's where Laxing is. He'll come rushing on in. And Sasha, that's his last smoke babe to work with. But because of the time, Oxygen have done the right thing. They've been able to bait out every single denial piece. And all that remains is Sasha.
Gonna have to play this perfectly in a 1v3. Ooh, Laxing's just relaxing over on the Rafters and does take down Sasha. So Oxygen have found 2 back-to-back attacks.
There we go. Looking cool, calm, collected there, James. Who questioned them? They're just coming in late, resting up.
Oh, that's certainly what they did in terms of the tournament so far. A 7-0 in their opening game against Parabellum, but yet to find any victories against the interregional competition for Oxygen. They still, of course, have Space Station and Giants to go after this game. And, well, if they can defeat Mkers here, then all they will need to do is win one of their games, either Giants or Space Station, and Oxygen are safe from being eliminated today. But there is a chance here that if Mkers defeat Oxygen, then really Oxygen are just relying on beating Giants, which is going to be the last game of the day, and it may well be one of the most exciting. Oxygen really getting a win here would do a lot for their chances.
Well, I don't have a lot of stats to go off of because, I mean, we just have that TSM game and then, of course, PG Nats, which is the Italian national system, where they 7-0'd IGP. So take this with a pinch of salt again. The data sample really small here, but it looks like Mkers does do a little better on their attacking side for the most part, on Clubhouse specifically. So I wonder whether or not that will remain true. I mean, we're only 2 rounds into it. We're into the 3rd round now, but they seem to be struggling on their defense.
Which is somewhat surprising in the greater context of Clubhouse, right? We usually look at Clubhouse as, yeah, there are some viable attacks on this map, but let's have a look at the NAL, for example, where Oxygen play. Clubhouse is 67% defensive-sided.
Yep.
And Cash is actually the most defensive-sided of them all. So at least within the NAL, you know, you would expect this to favor defense. And for that reason, you know, Mkers really do need to start stepping it up.
It's about to get hot.
Interestingly enough as well, when TSM, or rather when Mkers were able to 7-4 TSM, there were different roles that Mkers were playing. Acqui was on things like the Jaeger. We were seeing different roles, different operators for all different players here, and now they've switched it up again. And I'm not saying that's why they're seeing weakness, but when you change things up consistently, it does mean that you can also get inconsistent results, and I think that's what Mkers are seeing here now.
Map control for Oxygen step by step. I like that they're very hastily running through this, as long as they're being thorough and don't get punished, but
Deploying heartbeat sensor.
of course, as we go back to Church Arsenal for Mkers, that is a beautiful floor bang for Yoga as Scatto gets a little bit more than he bargained for, peeking the main stairs. That aggression shut down straight out of the gate. For the 2nd round in a row, Yoga's been the one to open it up.
Ooh, good trade late, albeit, but Gemini does manage to get it. And I was just going to notate there that Scatto's had an awful first half of this first half. He has managed to be in the opening death every single round, or at least close to. And that's going to be a shame, because that pulse being off the board was what they were hoping to be able to counter this deep armory hold here from Oxygen. That hatch gets opened up early, and none of that denial again, even though a simple shot or two or an impact would have stopped that one. But with the buck raining hell above, it's made it very difficult for Mkers to traverse this side of the map. I was going to say, Kino, I thought you saw Acqui there, and yes, he did. And he'll rip his head straight off, as now Mkers are much more worse for wear. 3v4 here, about 40 seconds left here for Oxygen, but they like to take their time.
But that time will slowly whittle away. All it's going to take here is a big multi-kill from a Mkers player to shut down, but it looks like Oxygen have dropped in. The Evil Eye gives Kino a bit of a wave as he drops down, but he's not rushing to this plant, and he can almost take out that Evil Eye. I believe it looked away. Perfect timing, so well played here for Mkers. Oxygen still have the time. That Evil Eye still not destroyed, and once again harassing Kino. Gemini can do a lot of damage here, but Oxygen have the man advantage. 4v3. Kino still once again trying to plant. Gemini taken down by Laxing. That's a big pick. Lolo, the last one left, and Laxing once again for Oxygen steps up. And OXG have just taken 3 attacks in a row.
Well, this is very refreshing. As someone who's quite unwell now, I needed myself a bit of oxygen, actually, and I'm getting a whole face full of it. That's why I'm not sounding 100%, ladies and gentlemen, so you have to excuse me, but just can't get away from these group stages. They've been incredible, all of these upsets. A lot of people were saying, James, that coming into this matchup, given how Mkers have performed against all NA teams, that Oxygen were technically the underdogs, the less likely to win this matchup. And you'd be right on paper, but I think what we're seeing from Oxygen so far is they had a really good talk last night. Look at the social medias of guys like Laxing, Foxe, etc. They said that this is not usually them, that they need to change something up. And they've done so, and they've come in today and they're really proving it now.
Which is just so exciting, because Oxygen, we know they have so much potential. We saw that in their NAL Stage 1 campaign, first place. We saw that in their opening game of SI, 7-0 over Parabellum. Of course, Mkers have a hell of a lot of potential, but there is a significant difference here between the experience on these two rosters. Foxe, Laxing, and Vertical have been around since the dawn of time in North America. Also made their appearance at several invitationals. Of course, Laxing won the very first invitational on Xbox with Elevate. Exciting times. But it hasn't been a great event for them so far, so it's nice to see this, a breath of fresh air, pun intended, for the Oxygen guys. Oh man, I didn't realize how much fun it would be to cast these guys and how much it would be an endless supply of puns.
I need an endless supply of oxygen when we're done the playoffs, please. Just absolutely send me a tank so I can lay in bed and recover so that when we get back to the playoffs, I am ready to go. But speaking of ready to go, surely Scatto, now that he's on a different operator, he'll be ready to go. None of this opening death business here for him just yet. And the reason that, not the reason, rather, the rhyme and the rhythm of bringing both a castle and a frost on Gym Bedroom, I really like. I know it's a bit of an old meta type of thing to bring the castle. A lot of people are bringing a Rooney instead these days, you know, in the EU region. But I like it. I think it's good. It fortifies extra. And if they wanted, they could have also brought an Rooney. But they'll forego that.
That's a 2-floor angle. That goes all the way down to the basement through the blue hatch from Scatto. I haven't seen that one before. That's really nice. But Mkers holding on to cash as long as possible. Oh, bit of a risk there from Yoga. But he gets away with it. Gemini finds the opening kill. That's Laxing gone down. And a big pick as well. Laxing's been a strong performer, 6-1 over the last 3 rounds.
Really well done here for Gemini to finally put Laxing down. He hadn't died yet whatsoever, had a 6 KD. Finally put an end to that story. And the first part of contention of this push will be over towards Red and Cash in a really bad position. Both Aqui and Scatto there and weren't able to get a single pick. Vertical, he wants to get rid of all the utility over here so it can't be used late. And again, they are in a man disadvantage early on, halfway through the round so far. And Mkers, they are, again, worse for wear. It just seems like their defensive half here is not working out in any way, shape, or form. And it's leaving these support players on site having to do a lot of the heavy lifting, which hasn't really been possible.
Even the rounds where Mkers do find the opening pick, Oxygen always have a reply. This is a very nice C4, but Kino's nowhere near it, so he survives. Lolo in an aggressive position. Doesn't have a lot of mobility. Hiding behind the weights. As we see on the balcony, Kino biding his time as Oxygen like to do.
They've got a really good amount of time here to work with. That's the last C4 as well, James. Gemini, he's going to have to hold tight here with the Vector.
Ooh, he's actually going to peek it aggressively. Foxe's ready for that one. and takes his head clean off Mkers. Just 2 players left, but Sasha's going to find one. This is actually getting pretty close now, Jess, as Lolo just dancing around these 2 angles. The nade comes through. That's perfect from Vertical, and Kino to finish him off. Sasha last one left, and it looks like it might be 4 for 4 for Oxygen. Sasha has to deny this. He might be able to find the angle. Cut off perfectly. He denies it. No way. Are they going to be able to refrag Vertical? You god. Thank goodness he could make that work. And Oxygen are going to be thanking their lucky stars. Vertical saved that round.
Nice bit of experience there from Vertical as well. You have maybe about 0.3, 0.5 of a second to decide whether or not you're going to replay it, whether you're going to go for the kill. In that situation, the only answer was go for the kill. There was no time left. And with 7-second defuse, you'd easily fall to that defender. So that was an almost clutch moment there. But Mkers, again, 4 rounds in a row, they will fall. And after a dominant showing against North America as a whole throughout these groups, and a dominant showing just the game previous against SSG, they're now showing their weakness on Clubhouse. And Oxygen, they've come alive. And I'm really excited for them. Both of these teams, whether it's the underdogs or the top-rated team from NAL, who are finally activating on the last day here. That's all they needed, though, James. That's the thing. You could have come into the last day 1-2 points maximum, and considering how close in points the entire leaderboard was, you could have just shown all of your strats in one day on just a few maps. And I'm not saying that's what Oxygen are doing in any way, shape, or form, but that's what they're able to get away with now.
Now, we haven't seen the Clubhouse from Oxygen yet in SI, and well, if it has been a trick up their sleeve, it's working now. But for Mkers, they're going to need something to get back into this game. I don't even know if saying get back is really accurate. They haven't been in it at all. I'm liking the little fist pumps as they take their tactical timeout.
Keep the energy high there, James. That's what you got to do. No matter even if you're on the back foot, you want to make sure that the mentality is positive.
Yeah, of course. And in terms of taking a tactical timeout, you know, you're a big fan of Mkers. You've worked with Germany before. What's the kind of thing that you would be addressing right now, or the Mkers need to be addressing right now? Is they've just taken their tack. They've lost 4 rounds of defense in a row. They realistically, you know, on this defensive side of map, they can't even hit par for the course now. They need both of these rounds just for a shot.
There's a lot of teams that will take tack pauses because players or the whole team as a whole might be a little bit tilted. They might be a little bit upset or angry that they're not winning rounds. But having worked with Gemini before as his coach, I know that that's not the problem. The mentality won't be the problem at the moment. It's how they're acting. It's the lack of coordination that they're showing there. And it's their inability to, I would say, respond to where the push is coming from. They seem a little scared. And I don't want to blame that as being what it is. Clubhouse is a map that locks you out of certain rooms very easily. So that might be all it is. But it definitely looks like they're not responding to the problems as they come. And when they try to, it's with solutions that aren't properly viable for that situation.
One thing I am liking, though, as Mkers go back to Church Arsenal for the 3rd time after losing it twice, is they finally adapted their strategy. We're seeing a couple of changes, and the main thing is the fact that we're actually seeing some roam presence. I think it's a bit loose at the moment. I don't have eyes on all the defenders, but there's one in storage. This could be a kill, but Vertical always hot on his shot, and he takes down Lolo very early on. A good opening pick for Oxygen.
I can't believe Lolo just stood there when there was a drone right in front of him. He surely would have heard it. And by standing as a sitting duck there, he's a bit of a freebie. Akwi knows someone is in garage, and yes, he is. There's 2 of them. There's Yoga, and he'll be the one to take Akwi out, and it just doesn't seem like any answer. Like I said, some of the solutions that they're trying to put up against Oxygen here aren't the right solutions. Playing solo roam, and you kind of caught a bit loose there, was not the play, because Oxygen have been playing their roam clear perfectly. They've been droning really well, and they're acting on the information. Scuttle again, trying to play the solo game. He will be punished. And as a result here, you cannot rely on being solo gods. You will get absolutely decimated.
Yeah, and with that, it's a 5 versus 1 for Oxygen. With less than half the round gone, Sasha can find one. Knows he can't realistically confirm that kill. This is quite a task ahead of him, but because Oxygen have the info about where Sasha was, they flood the site. Plant going down. So much time left. Sasha really needs to go big here. Ooh, rounds the corner, might actually find a pick. Oxygen take the flawless round. 5 in a row for them, and they are looking unstoppable.
Really happy for Oxygen now to come into this last day. You and I were talking before, and of course the desk alluded to this, is that Oxygen, well, it depends of their games who they win against, but it's not a tall order for them to get out of that 8th spot today. And given what we're seeing on paper at the very least, I didn't actually expect them to take this game. I expected that they'll probably be able to take the next one and then the one after that, of which they really only needed to have beaten Giants today to get themselves out of the danger zone. They might be trying to make a statement here by saying, well, we can beat Makers, we can beat all of the rest of the teams that are coming up for us today, and we can propel ourselves into a really good position. Do they have the opportunity now on the points that they're in, James, to get themselves into the upper bracket, or is it just lower brackets no matter what?
The thing with the upper bracket is it's really complicated because of how the tiebreaker system works. Currently, we have 5 teams in Group B tied on 3 points. 5 teams. And we only have 8 teams in the group, right? So almost everyone is tied on the same number of points at the moment. Obviously, that won't stick. By the end of the day, we should have a better idea. Well, we'll know for sure. But it gets a little bit complicated trying to theory craft exactly who can land where. What we do know for certain is that Makers is guaranteed to make it into the playoffs, whether upper or lower. We don't know as of yet. And Oxygen, they need to win this and then one of their other games as well, or just their Giants game to lock themselves in for playoffs. But if they do win this and the next 2 games, they'll be on 4 points, which is higher than any other team is currently. So while I don't have the exact calculations, I think it is highly likely that if Oxygen just have an amazing day, Jess, they could go straight into the upper bracket.
Well, there you go. Still a lot of opportunity from 0 to hero. Is a very big possibility now for Oxygen. And Laxing has been having a great game. I referenced what he had said on social media about 24 hours ago about how he was incredibly unhappy with the performance of himself and his team, and how he wanted to show that this really wasn't who they were and their identity. And now they're really acting on that. Their ability to get really clean and crisp kills off a lot of these hot drones have been very, very impressive. And the droners themselves, you've got to give them props to them because they're the ones giving perfect calls. Good night, Sasha. That is such an unbelievable shot through those metal rods there. No one can trade that, not if you tried. And that is an incredible opening yet again for Oxygen, who are just taking numbers. Everyone getting slaughtered all over the map here.
And Yoga once again with the opening picks as well. He's had him half the rounds we've had so far. The Avalanche is not stopping anytime soon as Yoga finds his triple. Laxing's already found one, leaving us in a 5 versus 1. Germany is going to have to pull something out of absolutely nowhere. C4 is not going to do a damn thing as Vertical locks in a flawless round, the 2nd in a row for Oxygen. And with that, match point.
I don't know what to say without sounding extraordinarily negative about Makers and extraordinarily positive on the other end of the spectrum about Oxygen. I'm sure there are people sitting there going, break it down. What are Makers doing wrong? What is Oxygen doing right? Number 1, they're droning. Their ability to act on the information almost instantaneously, perfect. Their ability to take mechanical engagements well above and beyond anything Makers has put on the screen today, even last match against SSG and now against Oxygen, check. Everything is rolling for them bit by bit by bit. Their utility usage with the Maverick of Foxay, them being able to get those walls up with Kino in record time. Whilst they do take their mid and late round a little bit slower than their early round, it does show that their plan has come to fruition time and time again. And now they only need 1 defensive round, which is extraordinarily easy to do when you think about the fact that there's a 67% defensive sidedness to Clubhouse in North America. That's pretty big.
Yeah, certainly Oxygen slipping onto their defense is going to be massively favored now. My question is not so much, is Oxygen going to win this game? My question is Oxygen going to get their second 7-0? Because that is definitely possible. We have not seen very many 7-0s so far at the 6th Invitational. The first one was Oxygen in their opening game against Parabellum on Oregon. The second one was Space Station against Giants on Clubhouse. This may well be the 3rd one right here. And funnily enough, it would be the same team that's already got one. So Oxygen are very much set up for this, and it's going to have to be a unbelievable comeback from Mkers to even consider the remote possibility of taking this game.
They'll have to have one of the best attacking halves of their life being under Mkers. And I think they'll definitely be shaken a little bit after the tossing and turning that Oxygen have put them through in that first half. Very convincing, not to the point of just the rounds on the board, but again, the early, mid, and late round from Oxygen, it all seems really, really well-oiled, and the machine is working perfectly for Oxygen. I definitely think this is a stark comparison to the other games we've been seeing from Oxygen, other than that 7-0 against Parabellum, which I actually don't think looked as convincing as this match from them here today has looked. Oxygen hasn't had the best of time here, which is why they're currently sitting in 8th, but with this possible 7-0, that is going to be a story that we just look back on.
Oh, and first pick is for Mkers. That's a good one, and also a big player to take down. We've talked a lot about Laxing so far, but in the recent rounds, it's been Yoga who's really stepped up. He's on the Vigil and making a flank up the main stairs. Reveals his position with a quick spray. Also spotted on the drone. He's going to go back down, as is Fox, but no. But now, staying aggressive, they're not satisfied with what they've managed to get. And this information denial roam is really going to be utilized here by Oxygen. Mute, Mozzie, and Vigil, as we see Foxay take a very aggressive position inside of the kitchen, just hoping that he will get misdroned.
Well, he's in such a precarious position too. And because we're way beyond halfway in the round, look at the drones there for the attackers. There's only a couple on the board to be able to be used. And as a result, if they don't, you're right, re-drone kitchen, Foxay will be just perched up in there. They're very, very close to dealing with him here. And there's a vertical for Yoga to use underneath onto the kitchen door as well, which he is holding on to. There's double fortification for kitchen, so they better avoid it. But if they don't, they will be punished very, very quickly. A run on past to get the kitchen hallway opened on up. And as we're getting down to possibly the dying seconds of the round here, James, I think they have no idea what's about to hit them.
This is going to be a hero play from Fox, round in the corner. Doesn't give his position away. Flanks into Bar. Comes around the corner, says hello, traded, but at least he got one, and a lot of damage onto Sasha as well. Mkers, at least they dealt with him, but 4v3 is not unwinnable. Yoga, though, does some damage. Kino as well jumps into it. Yoga for the double. Lolo, the last one left. Oxygen, 7-0 Mkers.
Well, that is a nice, fast one here today. They have just speed run through